Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my books and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 98 of The Captain's Heart. Jeremy had let the hot water fall on him, relaxing his sore muscles. "How are you doing?" his instructor asked, and her voice brought with it the other sound of the gym's shower, the other running showers, the conversations. You know what? I don't need this. The running showers, the conversation, the presence of other Kelsirians. The programming tried to turn that into an alarm, but he'd grown too comfortable around them, even if they were naked, like he was. "I shouldn't be this sore. You didn't even have me fight." Motion repetition is a strain when you aren't used to it. We start young. He slicked the water out of his face and faced her. "It's weird to me how even your simplest strength building exercise is based on fighting. There has to be a less violent way to do it." She kept lathering herself. But would they be as fun? The visit to the reservoir with his friend had gotten him comfortable around being around naked Kelsirians. There, they'd there were those who clearly put themselves on display, but other than a handful of incidents because of his alienness, this, I think, needs to be true. Basically, I need to wrap this around with the programming, what's been done to him. Visits to Rizzo with his friend before he'd been tortured had gotten him comfortable being around naked Kelsirians. There had been those who clearly put themselves on display, but other than a handful of incidents, because of his alienness, there never was anything outright sexual. He was finally getting back to that level of comfort. Kelsirians were serious about keeping lewdness out of places, keeping lewdness to places where it was acceptable, which he avoided. The gym showers weren't one of them. Here, the business was only washing the sweat and strain from the training. "Something you need to remember," she continued after rinsing her face, "is that on a scale of species, we were savages until recently. Turuxamians made us full of energy with claws and teeth and hunger. We were going to use them. We were basically made to use them. Violence is at the core of who we are. I'd say you have that under control. Control doesn't remove what you control. We channel it. We train. Those of us with stronger affinity for it join organizations that let us make use of it for the good of most people, like the hunters, or the military, or civilian security, or one of the sports." Okay, yeah, this my co-scriptor reminded me that Jeremy is actually aware of sports. Um, Ta 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 ta. Jeremy stared at her. Right. I'd forgotten you guys have sports. His friends on the second station, on the second station, when gone on the second station, had gone to watch a match while he'd followed Zinnial's instruction and ended up meeting other humans. Because of that, this needs to change. She chuckled. Everyone has sports. Are you saying Earthers don't? She stared at him. That's a period. Are you saying Earthers don't? We do. I'm just not into them. My sister played football at school. I had to play baseball during my first few years, but never enjoyed it. There's at least one volleyball league on Einstein. Lucy's part of it. There are probably others, but I've never looked. Weightlifting is enough for me. We have all sorts of sports back home. Coliseum will be filled every time there's a Clorac match. Clorac? 2 teams of 9 last standing wins for theirs. Last standing. Please tell me you don't mean last one alive. Of course not. There hasn't been an accidental death during a match for at least 3 decades. Jimmy shuddered at the idea of such violence in sports. Earth history had them, but the violence had been taken out of those which still existed. Tackling in football was one thing, but the piling on hadn't been allowed well before his grandfather had played. But as his trainer said, Kelsirians had been savages until recently, which he thought made it interesting they'd attained a level of spaceflight that put them in contact with other species so much earlier than humans had. Thurk was the first to arrive, but only about a strand of fur. Xenial nearly shouldered him aside, trying to reach the table first. Might have succeeded, but Thurk had moved with the impact, then pulled the Tahalan behind him with a smirk. Xenial grinned and sat on Jeremy's other side. I better not have to send you to opposing corners, he warned them, and earned himself a puzzled expression. He decided on a leisure alley, because he hadn't wanted so many people in his quarters. And he didn't want to impose on any one of them by asking. Impose by asking one of them to host the game. And leisurely were in part about playing games there, so they fit. Leading to this room. It just made sure to ignore the sounds coming from the few occupied benches leading to this room. Hopefully, the mix of his friends, without an atmosphere of supervision, would lead some of them letting their animosity escalate. It invited everyone, and only two had declined. Alex had categorically refused when Jeremy explained he wanted to teach them an Earth game. The engineer had more important things to do than play games. Atarikna was busy with a project for Hunter and couldn't stop the work. Pretiros was next, nuzzling someone who continued on their way. Then Leat Tergrabar. Then Jirani Joransum joined them. She got a surprise stare from Thurek. You two know each other? Her pack and mine worked together on a few hunts. Thurek said, I didn't know you knew other hunters. I needed help with programming something, and Atarikna said I should talk with her. And you became friends? There was suspicion in the tone. Jenny looked around Jeremy. There's someone other than me you don't like? Hunter Thurek Selminial disapprove of those of us, she said, smiling, who regale in using guile as much as brawn. You're from one of the covered up packs? Covered up packs? Covered up pack? That would be. Jenny asked, surprised. Investigation, she replied. He frowned and smiled. You're the one who got us the Earther movie database. Her ears folded back in embarrassment. Jeremy hadn't known she'd been the one who had. Most of their conversation had been about computers and programs. Hi? Scarif Drigowan, hesitating greeting caused the others to look at him, which made him uncomfortable. Scarif Drigowan. Jeremy greeted him. Take a seat. This is Scarif Drigowan Tomitar Drummond. He's a technician with repairs. I work on shuttle. Propulsion is my specialty. Jeremy introduced the others while Scarif Drigowan took a seat, having him between Jirani Joramson and Leah Tergrabar made the softness of Scarif Drigowan's body apparent. Even the psychologist was more defined. I have gathered you all to introduce you to a human game called poker. He produced a deck of cards he'd reconstructed and set the cards on the table to help him explain how the game worked. Those are the type of hands we're aiming to make. The highest value hand wins. He added the box of chips. We'll use these for the bets instead of money. Zeniel tapped the table, then scanned his bracelet. This is set up for bets. Without the game's rule programmed in, we'll have to adjust things manually, but it should work. Jeremy watched as the others scanned theirs until only he and Leah were left. I don't think Jeremy's comfortable about this. Leah Tergrobar said. She was right, but why was it? He and his friend had occasionally played for money, much more when he was at university and more stupid about some decisions. They all seemed okay with betting money, eager and even. Was it that this was the first time he had to think of money? He swept his bracelet each time he bought something, but that had grown casual well before he officially had the job on the ship. Back when it was. He stopped that thought. He scanned his bracelet with his tablet and accessed his account. Much more money than he thought should be there. He hadn't looked into what being a technician paid, but he doubted it amounted to what was there. Much more money than he expected. He doubted it amounted to what was there, which meant he stopped that thought. Okay, but the limit is 100 kron. Once I've gone over my accounts, figured out how much I can afford to lose on a game, we can have higher bets. The others nodded. They adjusted the amounts on their displays, and Jeremy proceeded to deal the first game. When the gods were young, Scarif Drigoran intoned before the father god imposed order on them, they went to war. He motioned to the table. At the center was a stone with cupped hand on it. Thurksamian's symbol. Around him were blank stone, the wall behind which he was hidden. This is the story of the last of them, the one so violent that the walls came tumbling down and forced him to bring order. He sat, and the swirl of stone that moved around stopped. Jeremy pulled 8 to him, then turned them. He had Centarina, Dragonar, Lovers, Haters, Insanity, Gralgiran, the First, and the Sea. actually the fist. These should be capitalized because they're names. And the sea. Only Denirag and the lovers worked together. If he remembered how the stone interacted, he needed more. If you want. If you remembered how the stone interacted. He needed more if he wanted to win. How can this be the story of that war? He asked, looking over the other player's stone. Gralgiran had been the one to suggest they introduce Jeremy to Roshgara in return for him teaching them poker. Wouldn't the game end the same way each time if it was? Turek had Jelzbiziam, who was Centarina's neighbor or sister or possibly lover, but they had a connection. He also had insanity, so... I'm forgetting to capitalize some of the letters, some of the... Also had insanity, so that was 2 stone he could put to play against her. Play to gain her. That would be 3 to 2 if he could keep Denirag or the lovers. Turk Mongarin wasn't in play yet, but that was only the easiest way someone could claim him. There were many ways to claim the god of sex and pleasure's attention. This is a story of the gods, Xenial said, arranging his stones. He had Selmiali, the letter. Xenialaharan, chaos. Chance. Pelteros Tafed del Garomer for stones that went together. Turek glared and muttered under his breath about Xenial's namesake. It changes with how they change what happened. History can't be changed, Jeremy stated. Not anymore. Not once Turek Samian imposed an order to what gods could do. Before that, things fluxed. He pushed his chaos tone forward. Chaos ruled, and stories changed. Leah Terdrubar said, placing order on the board. The others added one of their stones, and Jeremy pushed Centarina forward, and the mass of stone moved around the wall. To win the war, they needed to form a string of allied stone. The stones stopped moving, and they each took one for their hand. Gralgiran removed a stone from the wall. When the last stone was removed, Turek would step up and bring it to an end. Whoever the longest string won. That concludes chapter 98 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I'll wish you a good day.